Hello, everyone. How are you? Welcome to another Ask the Trainer, the show that plays every first and third Thursday of the month. Terms and conditions apply. And if we can get a sound check, today we are going to try something else. We're not going to do housekeeping at the beginning. We're going to do it maybe in the middle, maybe at the end. So we can get directly to the show and just sounds good. Thank you very much, Dean. Good. So I'm going to go through various things today, including questions from the forum, um, which the link I'm going to show you later on. I'm trying to figure this thing out currently. We'll put the links and all that later on. So let me bring up my screen over here. There we go. And let's go through some questions. This is one of the questions we got. I'm going to open the spreadsheet somewhere else on one of my other screens over here. There you go. You can see the screen flickering. That's because of Windows and, Windows. I'm going to go up the list. And first of all, yes. So we have a question on how to select edges when we are using C nodes. Now, let's go to my nodes layout over here. And what I want to do, as you can see in this particular case, I have this particular edge which I'm extruding. And the way you select an edge or a number of edges is you are required to use the point index of the 2 points that define that edge. The one thing that is obvious once you start working with C nodes is that edges do not have indices. There is no edge with an index of 0, 1, 2, 3. That's how things are. Don't ask me why and how and what will happen with this. The only thing I can tell you is how to deal with it. So if you are trying to select an edge in order to do something with it, in this particular case, to extrude, then you will have to put, after you select the edges, you have to set here the points that define these edges. So if I want to go and select the other edge, 9 and 10, I just need to go here and put a comma and 9-10. It works with an underscore as well. And of course, I've got the use islands on, so it's going to connect them and so forth. Now, the question is, well, how do I go and select a bunch of them? Well, you have to generate a selection to do that. And it depends, what you want to do. Either you need to go and identify with whatever means the points that define each edge, or if you want a loop selection, loop selections, in case you don't know, this is something I show quite often just to make sure that we understand how a loop selection works. So if you are in polygons mode and you do a loop selection, the loop selection works by selecting, essentially hovering over the edge that defines that loop. So if I go to this edge, now I get that loop. If I go to this edge, and by proximity. So if I want to create this loop selection in scene nodes, I have to define this edge over here. That's how things work. So let's go back, and it's not this, it's this. Let's go to the nodes layout. So if you go to the loop selection, that's why it gives you for all loop selections, whether it's points, edges, points, edges, and polygons, because with points, you need to select at least 2 points to create that loop selection. With edges, you need an edge. If it's a vertical edge, it's going to select things around. But in any case, an edge defines all types of loop selections. It doesn't matter which ones you want over here. So, if I take this loop selection and say, well, I want to extrude this selection here. So let me get rid of this and put active or default or whatnot. You can see that now all that loop around there has been extruded because I'm defining that one edge, the one you saw earlier with the points 8 and 9. But because it's a loop selection, it's going to select everything. You can go to points. It's not going to do anything because I need to extrude points. You can see it's doing that. It's extruding all these points. And maybe if I go here and do polygons and polygons, now it's going to go downwards because that edge defines that loop, the down and around loop. Okay. So that is edges. Now there are, let's say, index array from string, index array from string. This is a way you would create um, arrays that allow you to go. Now, the reason I'm saying this is just in case you want to use something that's a bit more programmatic. Whenever you go to any modeling tool that has one of these selection strings, there's one more. This is not visible usually, but if you right click, go to add input, there is an input called selection. This is the selection string. The selection accepts an array. So what you would do here is you can create whatever your equivalent selections, the ones that you would do over here, but you can do it in this mechanism and feed it wherever else you want. But in any case, programmatically, you can construct whatever your selections are, but you need to be able to define them in a way that is understood by scene node. So 8-9 or 8_9 would be where you would go to extrude that one. And what am I doing here? Where's my extrusion? Oh, interesting. Oh, yeah. If you turn off the nodes modifier, it won't work. I hope that's the lesson for today. I think we can end it right here because it's a very serious lesson. If a nodes modifier is off, it will not work. What a revelation. I would have never thought about it. Okay, so that's all we're going to say about selections. Oh, in the meantime, if you do happen to have any questions, just please preface it with a capitalized question so I can read it in the comments because I'm looking around trying to figure out what's going on. Excellent. And just to let you know, if you DM me on Twixer, X, formerly known as Twitter, I'm responsive with most user requests. And yeah, you can find me over there. Great. So what else do we have here? Let me go down the list of questions. Let me now there's a question about 3D printing. I do have an old 3D printer, an Ender 3 version 2, and I do use it to do various things, utilitarian things and all that. And I do exclusively use Cinema 4D to do these things. Now, the question I got from a user is how to make materials and textures appear on an object when 3D printing. That has nothing to do with Cinema 4D. That has to do with the slicer and how the slicer itself accepts these changes in materials and so forth. Unless I don't do multicolor prints and all that stuff, so I wouldn't know how to do it. I don't know. I don't know how that data gets encoded if they use point attributes and stuff like that. So yeah, if anyone knows how it's done, then maybe I can find the equivalent way you can do it in Cinema 4D. And exclusively when I do my 3D prints, it is volume modeling exclusively, with no exception, with gears, with all sorts of functioning 3D prints. Okay. Now, let's go. Okay, here's a question. I'm going to copy it and put it as a little banner. So let's create a banner. Let's paste it and add the banner and let's present it. So when modeling a cylinder and the loop edge selection is not cylindrical for whatever reason, is there a way to revert back to a circular shape without manually scaling until the loop appears circular? Yes, if it's the case of a cylinder, that's not even, or any round object, that's not even hard to do. So let me close this. Anything I'm done with, I'm going to close it. So here's the example I assume I'm just going to get rid of the cap so we can see through. And let's assume I make this editable. And I'm going to go and select this over here and gobble it up. I'm going to totally mess with it. And I'm going to use what's called, it's in the mesh. It should be called the set point value or something like set point value. Now, if you go to the set point value, this is a very old tool. You can crumple things in radial anyway, and the value, and you press apply, and you can do all sorts of randomizations of points and stuff like that. So you can set for X, Y, and Z various point positions. The reason I'm using it now is just to mess this up to the point where everything is, So these are the points, and I want to bring them back to their original state, providing they have a cylindrical configuration themselves. So first of all, find a way to select them. In this case, it's going to be a loop selection. Doesn't matter how garbled it is. If the topology is cylindrical, it will select everything with the loop. And all you have to do is right click and fit to circle and apply. So this will put them in a circle. Now you get a better idea. Oh, but it's not straight. No problem. Let's just go and set certain things. You go to your coordinates manager and you're in points mode. What I can do is I can reset the height scale so that all of these points will lie on the same plane. So just zero out the Y. Now, just to make sure, I can fit the circle again, just to make sure. There you go. Fitted the circle. And if I want to bring them exactly where they were, well, in that particular case, I will need, first of all, to scale them to their original scale. So I'm going to loop select this here. And this needs to be 100 centimeters in diameter, right? So let's go here. Let's make this 100 and 100. And now you're pretty much there. You can just go and align your points with a little rotation, and they're going to be fine. You will see that when you bring them to the right place, you will lose the 100 by 100 because that measures the bounding box. Okay. And yeah, that won't be a problem. Just make sure that you reset your X and Y just to bring them in the center and make these 100 and 100. And there you go. You're pretty much perfect right now. Now, if I was doing this, I would actually just make sure I would just delete these points. And then I would actually go and do a loop selection here, and bridge. So that's another way. You can just go and undo and bridge. Oh, edges. So points, control, click to select edges, and oh, it wasn't selected. There you go. So right click and bridge, and now let's bridge these, and there you go. And you can add a subdivision if you wish to do so in the middle where you were missing it and all that nice stuff. But that shows you a couple of ways. Okay. Let me look at the chats. And hello, Dean S Motion, Ivazenko, Big Beans, Dean again. I'm just reading the list. Right. Kelly, WT Madness, Thompson X, my friend Drake, Double T Madness, ADT Films 360, and Sorab. How is everyone? Now, don't forget that yesterday we had a session with Rodolfo, resident expert ZBrusher, creating and showing techniques on how to create game assets. It's on every Wednesday for the next 3 Wednesdays, and go and catch the other one on the Master Training Team YouTube channel, because as far as I know, because I'm not a ZBrush person, I don't do ZBrush, I do Cinema 4D in all 4 dimensions. But some people were very impressed by the stuff that Rodolfo showed, as usual. And yeah, go check it out. Okay, let me check out maybe some questions here from the chat. How to untriangulate. So let me go where the comments are. Let's see what this is. I'm going to bring it up and then I'm going to read it. How to untriangulate or triangulate mesh after they are tessellated. But in a good way. Well, it depends. The let's go and do some tests. Let me close this. And these are examples of good topology, though. So let's take a text. Let's extrude it. Let's add some thingies here. Let's go to the text spline, and instead of adaptive, let's go subdivided so we have some intermediate points here. And what else do I need? I need to go to the extrude caps, set the tessellation to Delaunay. So we get these little things here. Now, what else do we need to do? I'm going to make sure my extrude is set to Z so it goes backwards and is a bit thinner. I want to have some segments over there. So let's assume that this is our object. Okay, let's get rid of all these. And here's my object. Tessellation, it's got all sorts of things. Now, this has generally good topology. The surfaces are flat and all that nice stuff. Always start with a remeasure. Okay, the remesher, generally you're going to get a good remesh if your topology is good as well, and yeah, you can reduce the number of polygons and all that, but you can see that it's done a decent job in fixing it. So detect hard edges using shading as opposed to auto shading will give you better hard edges here. But I would consider this to be a very good quad topological um, model, even though I may or may not, it depends how I feel about it, because these are quads, but I may go and do some repairs over here. But overall, this would be the way to go. Just use the remesher and it will give you a very decent mesh even if you go quite low. I mean, it's quite astonishing sometimes how good of a mesh you can get using the remesher. Look at how low this is. And I'm going to put it under a subdivision service object and make a nice balloon text. Anyhow, so to that question, the untriangulate, I would prefer to go with the remesh. Now, the untriangulate itself, there is an untriangulate command here. And if you want to see how that looks, if you want to create a heavily triangulated mesh, import something from CAD or go and do a polygon reduction here. Now, polygon reduction it's interesting. Let me go and do more of these triangles and all that. So the polygon reduction is going to give you a lot of triangles. So let's make this editable. Now this, if you ask it to untriangulate, so go to any of your component modes and right click and go untriangulate and apply, it tries to do the best it can. But it's the nature of those triangles that for the ones you can see, the ones up here, because these are obviously quads split down the diagonal middle, the untriangulate can pretty decently find, well, there you go. We have cases where it doesn't find it. Yeah, because this was like this to begin with. You can play around with these. I don't play around with these things very often. I don't even know how am I supposed to use them, because I try to just get the model and remesh it. The triangulation will always require you to go and do some manual inputs. Anyway, this is the best. I don't know what other algorithms exist that may be better than this, but yeah, for what it's worth, the remeasure, in my view, will give you the best possible result. It will change the topology, but it does a very good job at doing so. Okay, let's see. Let's see. Where are we? I don't understand what is the most obvious difference between the new color map change and material change system and the old Blender system. I don't know. what you mean. If you mean for Redshift, the old nodes, the node graph and the expressor node graph and the new one, um, from functionality, there there shouldn't be a difference. There are still a couple of things that need to be migrated to the new system, uh, but the differences should be none when everything else is implemented. And the advantage is that the new one is much easier to work with. It's easier to look at, and you can create all sorts of groups and stuff like that, which are very helpful when you're creating complex node graphs. Okay, let's see what this is. Adam, question: when you have the result of a simulation, big pile of bio objects from, okay, how can you turn that into a permanent? Oh, you right click and you say current state to object. Now you have to be a bit careful with that. It depends what thing you're doing. So let's close this and let's go and create a sort of simulation. Sometimes you may be required to put this under a connect object, or you may be required to cache it as an alembic or something like that. So it always depends on what you're trying to do. So let's go to Mograph. Let's grab, I don't know, a sphere. Let's make it a child of the cloner. Let's lift it up. Let's lift the whole thing up. Let's put a nice little bouncy thing here. Right click, collider, and control double click to make it fit. And let's make rigid bodies, and let's do this. Bagonk, bagonk, bagonk. Okay, let's get some bounciness here. So collision and bounciness, let's put 1, and we should get some bounciness here. A bit. Yeah, there we go. Let's go to the disk and increase the bounciness to 0.8. I'm going to bounce a bit too much, but let's say this is what we're trying to do here. Boing, boing. Oh, and let's say I want to freeze everything here. Now, you can right click and say current state to object, and this will immediately create a bunch of spheres in those positions. So in this case, it works without any hitch. Now let's try something else. Let's go here, and instead of RBDs, let's set this to be um, soft bodies, which are cloth objects essentially. So let's go and make them cloth. They're going to sort of crash when they go down. There you go. If it doesn't update, turn it on and off. It's yeah. What is it called? Yeah, turn Alt Control Delete, and yeah, that that kind of stuff. Sometimes you just need. There you go. So let's say this is what you want to get. Now again, let's right click and say current state to object, and we are going to get all these objects in that state. So current state to object is the proper way to go. Now, if for any reason, just for any reason, you find yourselves that it's not working the way you expected, what you could do is put everything under a connect object. And that, what that will do is, because it's consolidating everything into a mesh object anyway, then you can just press C and you get a single object with that geometry, because that's what happens with a connect. And the final thing you could do before you do anything like that is just go and cache it. If again you have some sort of problem, just go and cache the number of frames that are necessary. Again, off and on, off and on. There you go. Just go and cache the necessary number of frames that will allow the simulation to give you that final frame. So let's say we want to freeze frame 45 or 45. Just stop it at 45 here, and go and say cache and create an alembic file. Then you can load that alembic file and make it editable at any frame you want. I do prefer that method because it gives you the potential to go a few frames before, a few frames after, and find maybe a better frame for that thing. Okay, so that's that. Let's see now. Da, 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 da. Does the shading, edge detection, measure work with the function? I do not know. I'm not sure about that. That is something you can experiment with, uh, because I just removed the file now. Yeah, I'm not absolutely sure. Sorry about that. Okay. And we answered that. Can't state object doesn't work. Oh, you mean bullet objects? Well, put them under a. All right, let's do it with bullet objects. Let's see, just testing. So, bullet object. So let's go to Mograph, cloner. Let's go and apply a rigid body. I'm trying to remember how bullet applies these things. We'll find out soon enough. So let's go and let's do a disk and let's make this a bullet collider. Right. Okay. We have bounciness and let's just rotate this. There we go. So, and this now, if you go current state to object, it won't work. So let's try with the connect object. Rewind, press play. And now current state to object, the connect object, and it doesn't work. Okay. Yep, that's the old way that things don't work. So what we're going to do is we are going to cache this. And the way I like to cache these things is you use a connect. I like the connect because it will create a single alembic object. Let's say you want to go, as I said before, frame 45. You will right click and bake as alembic and delete. So let's bake as alembic and delete. It's going to ask me for a folder. Let's see, where are we here? March the 6th, select folder. And now we have an alembic file. And because it's an alembic file, we can go and do a connect object and delete current state object, sorry, at any given frame we want. There you go. So you have to cache it, and that's the easiest way to do it without having to fuss with everything else. I'm sure there are ways with nodes and whatnot, but yeah, this will be the best method. Okay. To copy and paste a gradient, I think you're talking about Redshift. I'm not sure, but there are some limitations. These things that used to work in the past. So this is a suggestion. If there are things that works in the past and that are useful and they don't work anymore, contact Maxon, because there are some things that Maxon needs to know how important they are to you, and if enough people petition something, the chances are higher that Maxon is going to take action towards that. So let's continue. Yeah. Sometimes you need to cache a dynamics before kind of state to object. Exactly. Thank you very much for that. Okay. All right, let's go to the spreadsheet now and check out. Oh, I do have a question that came to me from where did it come from? Oh, yeah, from the form that has to do with nodes. Now, okay. What I'm going to do, because we're running well on time, I am going to go through a couple more questions from the spreadsheet, and then we are going to talk, and I'm going to finalize today's lesson. Although I'm going to make a detailed tutorial on what I'm going to show you, I am going to give you a hint on how to use nodes. So this is a very simple node setup, right? We're looking at 6 nodes over here. And these 6 nodes provide you with enough information for a cloner, just with using 2 effectors, to be able to clone and use position, scale, and orientation. And this here is using a surface scale blue noise, and it's Mograph. What you're seeing here is Mograph. I can go to this and I can offset these using a plane effector. Okay, but the data, these circles are being placed on this surface are actually generated through this node. So I'm going to show you how to do this in a very quick way, and a tutorial will come with one of the next, the second batch of nodes tutorials are up in Cineversity. I posted on my X account the links directly to them because we have a little bit of an issue um, with the playlist. Okay, so the first 12 are in the playlist. The other 9 but they're still, scattered. Okay, so let's go through a couple of more questions here. Let's see. Okay, this is an interesting one, which I've had in the past. I actually had the question. I was the one asked the question. So when you go to the materials now, there's this new button that says you bring it. You can browse Redshift materials, and I was so excited. I said, "Oh, actually, maybe I want to create my own materials, and I can browse the Noseman materials and stuff like that." And for the life of me, I couldn't find the browse Redshift materials anywhere. I went to the command manager, I went to all sorts of places. And the reason is this is a smart search. Da, 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 da. Okay. So, one of the functionalities which I recently found out of is that you can do some searches. Now, if you go here in the other, you will see we have the Redshift materials. This is this. And you can go and create one of those. Now, I've created my own because the question is, let's say I want only to select Cinema 4D classic materials for whatever reason, because I want to use them in Mograph, using a shader effector or something like that. So this is the one I've made. This is actually not the one I want to use. I'm going to remove. There you go. This one here. And I'm going to just copy this and show you how you make one of these. You will make it by, you see here it says smart searches and all sorts of nice stuff. Um, there are certain keywords like type. Now, if you go here, you will see if you put type, it gives you a list of what types you can use: model, material, media, operator, node, scene, presets. So obviously I want type material. Okay, so I'm going to copy this, remove everything else. There you go. So a type, and I can't even read if this is a semicolon or a colon. I think it's a semicolon. I don't know. I think it's 2 dots. Now we're getting all the materials, and I put a space and I type classic because I was just trying to figure out what word that will be. And I would say, yeah, classic. With this selection here, you go and you say save smart search. So you go here and you say, where's my save smart search? There you go. It's right here. Save as smart search. And you do that and it asks you what you want it to be. So this is classic materials 2. Okay. And it uses the search terms. You can actually make it directly here. Press OK. And these now live. If I remove this, these live. There you go. This is the one I just made. And I can go here and put it right there. And now I can change the icon and all that. There you go. I have my classic materials. So you can do this for Mograph material, you can do this for tiles, you can do this for anything you want. And the great thing about these things is you go to this little thingy here, and look at that, it's got an icon. So what I'm going to do is, I guess I'm going to, what am I going to do? Oh, I'm actually going to do a Command Shift S to copy anything. And I'm going to go here. I think I can paste it. Let's update, open in picture viewer, update from clipboard, update preview from clipboard. There you go. So I've updated that from clipboard. Excellent. And now there it is. And now I can drag it in here. Oh, if you add another one to get rid of it, you need to go to Command Manager, activate the edit palettes, and control click or double click. Yeah, double click. And now just close this. So there you go. I have my icon. I have my classic materials. You can do whatever you want. And this is how the Redshift materials work. Excellent. So that was for the question from Michael. Yes, from Germany. Let's see now what. Okay, there's a question about receiving CAD files from clients and the topology and the objects and all that. There's not much we can do on our side to fix that. You need to ask if you're working with companies or engineers that use CAD software and they provide you with files, they have to group things. They can group by materials. There are a ton of ways they can create layers and all that. We can read them when we open the files in Cinema 4D. We can actually group or put materials by any of those different parameters, but they have to be set in the CAD software. If someone just willy nilly makes a CAD software with 1,000 objects that have no reasonable grouping, that's what you're going to receive in Cinema 4D. You're going to get thousands of objects with no reasonable grouping. And then, you just have to go one by one and figure out what everything is. So that's unfortunately, yeah. Okay. Um, there was a question by Corey about importing a DAS model, and it didn't work. I emailed that individual because some individuals allow us to contact them and they provide us with an email. And if pertinent, I do send an email asking for some reference or something like that. So, Corey, if you are listening, check your emails. If you can zip up the export you got from DAS and send it my way on a link, uh, please do so. Okay. The last question, let me see. Um, yeah, there's a question about bubbles. That is something I may do as a tutorial. I'm marking it with a green color to become a tutorial. And okay, and now, yeah, Thomson X, a very great comment. The asset browser does so much. Yeah, it needs its own. I like WeKilt. A weekly tip. Yeah, we actually have an expert in the company that swears by the asset browser. There are many secrets which I'm not aware of, and I'm starting to figure them out as we go. Anyway, let's see what else do we have now. I think it's oh, I do want to show you something because it was one of linear drift has been around us um, in our group sometimes, and I promised I'm going to show this because it's a beautiful little tip. I don't know if anyone has used the camera deformer. Now, what the camera deformer does, first I'm going to show you how to do it. So I'm going to get an object that has subdivisions because we're going to deform something. And I'm going to add a camera deformer to it. It's somewhere around here. There you go. So this creates, now the camera, it uses either camera you're going to drag in here. And actually, I'm going to do that for a very good reason. I'm going to show you in a second. Now, when you are when you have this camera deformer, and let me activate the camera, what you can do, you can go to points mode, and you can use any modeling tool that moves points around. You can use the brushes and all that. I love to use the sculpt brushes. Okay, so I'm going to get the grab, and look at this. Look at the geometry behind it. You can deform things from a point of view. And of course, you're going to ask me, what do you mean from a point of view? Well, as I'm rotating around, the deformation remains stuck to the camera. So what happens is that if you move out of that camera, the deformation is still applied. That 2D screen deformation is still applied. And you can also apply this as a sibling, and I can move the cube and it will swim through that. Now this was made to do cartoon when you're doing tunes and stuff like that. You have the ability to use the camera deformer to sort of tweak shapes, because it works because it's a mesh object with PLA as well. So you can change what's happening frame by frame. So you can go lock everything else up and add PLA keyframes, then go to another frame and change this and add PLA keyframes, and then go here, change something else and add PLA keyframes, and it will animate. So it allows you to do corrections and stuff like that. And you can change the grid and so forth. Now, why am I showing it? It's because it even works with particles. So camera deformer, you do need to apply it to a multi-group to force the particles to come down to the CPU. It won't work if you apply it to the particle group over there. But what you can do, and I'm going to go into the camera, is you can modify the way the particles are being moved around. Look at that. So you can go to the camera deformer and modify the particle positions. And the great thing is that if you move out of this camera, you will see the particles doing the motion that the camera deformer is telling them. So it's a very easy way to manually add some organic motion or art direction without having to use modifiers and stuff like that. Yeah, and that's great because you can modify the multi-group particles or cache particles for that matter. So you can do this. It's allowed if you want to go to rotation, move this around. There you go. So you can do that to the particle data. It's perfectly legitimate. So now you can have both this and the bend deformer. Just so that you know, but the camera deformer is great for something like that. Excellent. Okay, let me check some questions. And then I need to go to that nodes thing I want to show you. One second. There we go. Let's see what this is. What's going on in the gaming industry nowadays, because I want to start my career in 3D modeling for games. I do not know, but if you check what is, go and Google it, or go and, I don't know, chat GPT it or Grok it, or go to any large language model or any search engine and ask what is the budget for games, indie games, and so forth, and what are the salaries for various users. But besides that, just watch the streams every Wednesday. We had one yesterday, and for the next 3 weeks, we're going to have 4 in total. That is about gaming assets, and start learning ZBrush. Okay. Let's see. Hanana, how can I make square tiles floating in spear shape formation, looking at the center? If I understand the question, you get your square tile, let's say plus Z, okay, and let's make it smaller and put it under Mograph cloner. And now, whatever you want to create your clones, you want them all to look towards a certain direction. For Mograph, you use a target effector. So you go down here, target effector, and then wherever the target effector is exists, all these are going to rotate around. So there you go. So you can create your solar panels, whatever these are. That will be it for Mograph. And if you want to go to individual objects, you will use a target tag. And let's put a null in here. There we go. So now the null is going to make that square point in that direction. And from this point onwards, any number of these will always point to that. There you go. They're all facing towards that null. Okay. Yep. Let's see, what else do we have here? Let's see. Okay, Thompson X. I import it as high quality as possible, then I charge them for the time I need to organize the layers. Now, there is a point that Thompson is making. If your if you work with good clients that understand how valuable life is, and we all have a finite measure of it, right? Next year, I'm going to be 60. So I'm approximately over my 60th percentile of expectancy. I value time a lot. So if someone wants my time, they have to pay for it or, reciprocate in a form that is, makes sense for me to give my time to do things. So if you find clients that understand the value of life, the value of family, or the value of, being humans and enjoying yourselves and doing cool stuff, yeah, just get any project as long as they're willing to compensate you in a humane way. So thank you for that tip. I'm going to bring it one more time. Just charge them for the time. Okay. Let's see. Let's see. I'm not going to talk about the vibrate tag right now because I want to go for that nodes thing. If we have time, I'm going to tag it. And if I have time, I'm going to get to it. So I want to talk about this. Now, there was a particular, the particular ask came from, I'm going to find a link I had here on my Mac. So if there is a Cinema 4D Reddit, we're going to go here. Oops, I pressed the wrong control. Command C on the Mac and Control V on the PC. So this is a Reddit post, and question was the question was posted by an individual about how to create um, a sort of a spherical packing on a surface. Now, the particular Reddit thread, which is excellent every single time multiple answers are given. It's a great thing if you have questions, if you want to go and read through things, and the solutions have been proposed. So, for example, if you want to distribute spheres that are adjacent to each other, uh, by getting any torus, we're going to use a torus because that's what the question was, the example. A triangulated mesh like this, if you go to remesh, you set it to instant mesh, the other remesher, instant mesh, and you make it triangles. And what you can do now is you can clone spheres, clone little spheres on the triangle. So you're going to go here and say object, you're going to clone on the remesher, you're going to clone on polygon centers, and you're going to make your sphere very small. And there we go. And now you get this distribution, or you can clone on points, on vertices. It depends how you want this to be. Points, I think, in this case is a bit better. There you go. So you get this very nice, even distribution because they're triangles. You are going to get some parts where you may get overlaps. You can go manually there and hide the clones and all that. But this is a very tight and very nice distribution. Okay. So we're all good with this. It's Mograph, and it just requires you to have a mesh which has the topology you want that will make your setup possible. But now we're going to go into, if anyone has watched my YouTube videos on my personal YouTube channel, YouTube / Noseman, something like that. Or find me by name, Athanasios Presents. I have another Noseman channel, but that's a different story. So you can utilize a number of, they're called distributions. So let's go and set it up from scratch. I'm going to just set it up from scratch so we can get everything done. And let's see if we can do it in less than 15 minutes, okay? So we have a torus. And I want to go and do some sort of circle packing distribution. And to do that, I'm going to use nodes. So I'm going to go here, click on nodes, go to asset construction, and get a nodes mesh because I want it to be, I want to generate an object with certain characteristics. Okay, I'm going to put the torus in here. I'm going to turn everything off because now I need to explain the goal, what I'm trying to do. So if we were cloning our little circles or spheres or whatever, cloning this on the surface of an object, and what I did before, went to the points, make this smaller. If I had a point object, because the torus I'm using now to do this, it is a point object, it's a mesh object. If I had a mesh object that gave me orientation, well, the orientation, you can see the spheres are lying nicely on my mesh. And that's because the cloner, when you have the align clone, it reads the normal direction of that particular polygon or vertex, and it sort of aligns whatever it wants to align on that vertex. So Mograph, it gives the cloner information about the position of each clone, which is a point position. It gives information about the orientation, which is a little vector that points in a certain direction, in this particular case, the normal. And of course, if these were scaled, it will require some information about the scaling. And that is something we need to create. Now, the problem we're having here is that I want to be able to generate that trifecta of data, the positions, the scales, and the little normal orientation, rotation, whatever that is, but using nodes and exporting those nodes as a object that Mograph can understand. So I'm doing, just to go here, because I'm going to use this cloner to read it. But it's not going to be this torus here. It's going to be this object over here. So let's go and generate these three specific datas, one being the positions. Let's begin with the position. So let's go to my nodes. And let's go and read the torus. So this is something I do all the time in my tutorial. Excellent. And I'm going to read this geometry over here. So I'm going to go and say transform. I just need a transform geometry so that if I move the torus, it knows what to do with it. So I get the geometry, get the global matrix or the matrix, and this is the geometry I'm going to get. This is what I'm interested in, this geometry over here. Then I'm going to use what's called a distribution. I have a dedicated video on distributions. So I'm just going to go and get the one that's called surface scaled blue noise. And you feed it a certain geometry, and it gives you a number of stuffs, a distribution, which is an array of matrix, index, source, ID, ratio, and color, which is very similar to what the Mograph array gives us. So that's the great thing. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to iterate the collection. Again, just a standard technique. You iterate this, and in the elements, now we are getting the individual matrices for each and every one of the points it's generating. And what I'm going to do here is I'm not going to create data that Mograph understands directly. I'm going to create data that Mograph understands indirectly. What does Mograph understand when we're using the object? It understands points. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set point, not set point, geometry set, sorry, geometry, geoset will give you a geometry property set. By default, it's set to positions. So you can feed it an array or an iteration, deselect the array mode, and it will get an iteration. And I'm going to feed all the point positions from what this surface scale blue noise is creating. And now, if I put this here, oh, nothing has happened, right? Nothing has changed. Well, let's see, because we wouldn't see points if we're in object mode. So what we can do is select this, go to points mode, and maybe even go here and activate point indices. Oh, we do have points. If you want to see these points, and these are the points that are generated from the surface scale blue noise. Okay, so this is a point object. You want to see it? Right click, current state to object. Here's your point object. You can turn everything else off. Go to points mode. Let's turn this off. There are the points. So this is generating an object that has points. Fantastic. We can't see them, but they are there. The second piece of data we want is we want to store the scale that comes from here. And we just want a uniform scale, so I can just get, the X or the Y or the Z because it's a uniform scale. How can I encode on a point object a a value, a number? Well, you can do that by geo set, the same node, but instead of positions, I'm going to encode a weight. So what I'm going to do here is set this to array mode. And I'm going to say, get one of these, put it here. And I want to sort of chain it with this. And oh, look at that. We have now a vertex map that in theory will contain the scale values for each and every one of those positions that the distribution is generating. Okay. So the last thing I want is I want to encode a rotation, because rotation is what it uses to orient the various clones. Now, a rotation requires 3 parameters. I can't go like the scale and get 1. And what is that? What is geoset? What is that parameter that allows us to have at least a vector? And that is color alphas. So again, array mode. Let's chain this up. Now, it's not working because it's not receiving any values. It gave us this error. We're requiring 128 values. I'm receiving only 0. Over. Yep. Put it on default and it's going to be fine. It's going to create just a default one. That was a temporary little glitch there, but we're going to fix it. Now, you can't just take the rotations and stick them in here, because rotation and orientation, although they have a large overlap, are not the same thing. What I need to do is use a transform normal or point or vector. Transform vector is what I'm looking for. And this transform vector requires some sort of part of a matrix, which in this case is the rotation. And it will give us a vector because that's what we're looking for. Orientation is a vector. But we need to make sure we tell it exactly what that orientation is going to be. And I think we go with up vector of y. I think I played around, I found it, and put it here. So let's see now how we can take this data and see if we need to change anything else to make this work. So let's turn on the cloner. Let's tell the cloner to use the nodes mesh to put these spheres. Excellent. I want them to be on the vertices. Good. So as far as the position is concerned, this is fine. And let me take this. Actually, I'm not going to use a sphere. What I'm going to use is a disk so we can see the actual orientation of it. And you see, everything is facing upwards. Okay. So how do I apply the scaling? Well, the scaling, we are going to apply it using an effector. So I'm going to get a plane effector. And the plane effector, I'm going to go to the parameters and set it to scale. Let's go here to scale. Let's go scale. I want uniform scale. The question is, what do I need to scale and how much and all that nice stuff? Well, the data needs to be read using a field. A field, there you go. So I'm going to get this field here. And because my scaling can be unclamped, I'm getting rid of this to make sure that I get negative and positive scales. So now these things are scaling. Excellent. I need to make sure that the disk is set to radius 1 because it's going to multiply the 1 with whatever the number is going to be. But I need to make sure that I'll set this to 1 and this to, I think it's remap. It's not a big difference within relative, but remap seems to be the correct one. So these are my scales. You just use a plane effector, do these things and put them there. And as far as the orientation is concerned, well, that's going to be slightly trickier. One thing that a lot of people do not know is that for orientation, we don't go with the plane effector with rotation. No, 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 no. We use a target effector. The target effector has a mode in the target mode, field direction. And here in the fields, we're going to drag our color. And we need to make sure that these are oriented properly. So I think the disk needs to be plus Z. Is that? There you go. Plus Z. It's just that they're quite large. Now, this is a setup. This is all you need to do. Now let's go here and increase the number. I'm going to say minimum of 2, maximum of 5. Let's go and make more of these, maybe maximum of 10. And everything works. You have a Mograph setup. You get rid of lines. Get rid of lines. No, you have a setup here. And you can pull out any of these parameters you want. You can sample count, min and max, and all sorts of things. You can drag them out here. New, new, and new. Now you have an object that allows you to do this. And the setup, this setup, plane, target, and clone, and these two vertex data tags for color and for scale, and the vertex weight, allows you to create a node generated distribution that a cloner can use, and then you can use this cloner in the same way that you use anything else. So I can go into a plane, as I showed you earlier, and move it 20 up and go to fields and add I don't know, a random effector and put my favorite noise, which is the Luca, and make it bigger, put some animation. There you go. So, and this can be used to distribute anything. So closing it off, because we're going to close off very soon, I just want to show you the various distributions. Again, watch the videos on Cineversity, but I do want to show it. So you can go here and type distribution, and select any of these. But if you have to do that all the time, it gets a bit fussy. So what you need to do is select this node. This works with primitive splines, primitive meshes, and distributions. Right click and say toggle node type. Forget that it has this weird op thing there and all that. Just forget about it. Just delete this and delete this and delete this. Leave it as it is. And here you can go and select any kind of distribution you want. So surface random, and now we have a different distribution, and maybe we want to make them bigger. And then, let's do a Mandan bulb, right? So this is a fractal, and I don't even know if it's, oh yeah, it is saving scales and all that. Bring these closer, sample count. Let's go with 10 and 10 and 10. And let's create a nice little fractal. There you go, fractal, incoming fractal, 150, 150, and 30. Oh, look at that. Now, don't forget, set it to multi-instance. And here's a speed. We are getting quite a few of these. Let's go 100 here. Wait for Mograph to catch up. There you go. So fractals and so forth. Anyway, that was the point of this, that using this method, you can use any of the node tools to create an association that a cloner of classic Mograph understands, and you can use it. And this is just one of those things where I try to remind users that although talking about geeky stuff like point positions and vectors and all that, it is a drag sometimes. It is tiring. But yet, if you manage to get this much more understanding about these fundamental parameters and how they work, the difference between orientation and rotation and all that, these little let's say, connectors of knowledge are going to allow you to take advantage of much more of your everyday software, whether this is Cinema 4D or After Effects or whatever else you choose. So I think it's a it's a sound investment. Yeah, and the resources to learn about these things are a dime a dozen on the interwebs now, especially if you use LLMs and stuff like that. Okay, let me quickly go through the questions. I don't think I have time to answer anything else. Let's see. Let's go quickly. Where was the last time okay. Let's see. Yeah, some any questions, send them through the form. I can't get to all these. Zero gravity effect, use simulation. Just turn off gravity. Yeah. Or don't use, yeah, just turn off gravity. And you can spin them around. Just go to your, go to your project settings, Control D, go to simulation, simulation, scene, and turn off the gravity. And you can localize gravity if you want and do those kinds of things. Yeah. So let's see. Quickly, can we use a decompose node and feed the array of position rotation? So of course, separately to geo set directly instead of iterating. Well, you need the iterations to be synchronized. There's no performance deficit in doing that. I tried it with 30, 40,000 points, and it was working fine. Um, Depending on the situation, you may need to do that. You could do that if you want. The only problem. All right. I'll tell you why I didn't do it. The reason I didn't do it is that if you go to decompose container, the question is, because you can use decompose container to expose all the arrays, and then you can use arrays. The matrix, if you want to decompose a matrix itself, there is no way to decompose a matrix array into an array of uh, translations, array of rotation, an array of scale. As you can see, I'm using these differently. I did make a helper, and this is one of the things which I like about nodes, is that you can make a little helper. So in order to break up the matrix, you actually have to iterate the collection and split it apart and reconnect it. So you're going to have to do this to the matrix, even if you want to use them separately. But the main reason I didn't do that was because the matrix itself, I can't just read the scale for here and just read the orientation for here. Okay, so it had to be an iteration, which simplifies the nodal structure because this allows us to feed iterations directly. Otherwise, I would have for each or of these things an extra 2 or 3 nodes just to break the matrix apart and recompose it. That was the reason. Okay, let's see. Um, tire dust when a car moves on dusty road. Yeah, but just make a particle emitter that moves with the wheel and spits out some particles. Let's see. All right. Last one. Is there a way to add animated noise to animate the scales in the distribution mode? Well, you not the distribution itself doesn't offer you a way directly, but you can do it indirectly, right? All right, I'm going to close with this. Let's go to my nodes. Let's assume that for whatever reason you want to create some sort of movement in this, whatever it is, position, scale, rotation. You want these to sort of oscillate? Well, you would go to your scale here. So we are using this, and we have this little thing, control shift and click. So we want to put something in between here, which is, let's say, animated. Okay. So we can get some sort of noise, I would guess. So let's go, or a hash. Let's get a noise, a sample noise. And I'm going to get the translation to sample different positions for each and every one of these. And with the sample position, I'm going to scale it. So I'm going to scale. I can scale whatever scaling is coming from there. And I'm going to do this and connect this up here. So now there's a Perlin noise here that allows me to change that. Okay. And I think I can I add some time here? Yeah, I can add some time. So let's go and add a time. And let's set scene time. And now you can see we're actually interjecting, the values that come from the iterate collection. This is one of the advantages of using nodes, that although the majority of things are not built in automatically, although there's a ton of stuff that's built in, you can build a lot of this stuff. And then you can reuse it. You can say, okay, I'm going to grab these three things. I'm going to right click and create a new group, right? I'm going to group these things. So group nodes. And here's my add noise using time, whatever, right? There you go. And this is ready. You can make it into an asset. Next time, you can use it just to add noise to your scaling. And you create it once, you use it multiple times. Anyhow, that's all I have for today. Let me stop this. Now, for anyone, please stick around for the housekeeping if you're interested in finding out the links and all that nice stuff. So don't leave. Come on, please stay with me 2 more minutes. All right. Very quickly, I'm going to paste the link that will bring you to this page here. And you will find the various events, which are these events over here, all the great stuff that everyone is doing. I think tomorrow, VFX and Chill, June. Yeah, I would, I always go nuts watching it. The stuff that Seth, Hashi, and Michael are doing. Yeah, it's brilliant. I love it. Anyway, and don't forget the Wednesdays with the gaming assets that we're doing. All these videos are hosted only on the Maximum Training Team YouTube channel. So although you can watch them live on the both Maximum Training Team and the Maximum YouTube channels, if you want to watch them recorded, go to the Maximum Training Team YouTube channel, and you will find them there with timestamps and comments kindly provided by a friend and mentor, Dr. Sassy. He's doing so much work in the behind the scenes. We're very thankful. Go and learn ZBrush. I can't stress it enough. It's an absolutely wonder of a software. And of course, go to University. And are these the new ones? Point Cloud. Yeah, I think these are the new ones I did, which I think, yeah. So these are parts of the new ones. Partially what I showed today, and how to create distributions, how to change the clones, and all sorts of other tricks, how to create cloning without distributions, how to clone into points, how to transfer colors from point variables, and creating Sparky. This is Sparky, and many other things. Right? It's an interesting series if you like to learn anything about nodes. And that's a wrap for today. Um, uh, yeah, thank you very much. I'm very appreciative of everyone hanging out with me here. Please post your questions at the post a question thing, which is in the front page. It's over here. You go down here and you post a question. Um, if you do have a scene you want to share or some reference, put your email there and I will get back to you. I can't get back to all the questions, but I do as much as I can. And enjoy the rest of your day. Now I need to find the appropriate buttons to close the show. Oh, and there's a QR code in the end screen. I think it works. Not sure. Take care, everyone. Thank you for hanging out with me. Bye bye.